Hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Wasserbauer, and here's the question. What is hair loss around the edges? Hair loss around the edges is a phrase often used by people with African American type of hair, that dark curly stuff that is often either braided or put into dreadlocks in order to keep it a little bit more manageable. Hair loss around the edges can be seen after even childhood with really tight hairstyles, or even after a couple of decades, or even as short as a few years if someone is particularly susceptible. This is known in the hair loss community as traction alopecia. And here's how it works. I'm going to draw for you. So if you have curly type of hair, African American type hair, there's all different types. Some are big waves, some are tiny little waves, some are a little bit more kinky and irregular. Your hair looks like that under the scalp. If this is the top of where the hair is coming out, that's why it curls, is because it actually curls underneath the scalp. So if you pull on this, the blood supply down here gets pulled up a little bit too. And these little guys down here are actually like the tiny coil that you used to see on a telephone cord. So when you pull that a little bit tight, that coil gets a little bit smaller on the inside, and that's where the blood flows through. So you're not getting as much blood supply to the hair follicle if you're wearing those tight hairstyles. Now, those tight hairstyles also occur in other types of hair. It's not just African American hair or even just curly hair. You can also get this when cheerleaders are wearing their hair really tightly, or it often happens in gymnasts, or anyone who has something pulling on their hair. Extensions, wigs, all this is all the same exact pathology for how the hair loss happens. But the good news is that this can be transplanted and your hair can be brought back. Even if it's all around the fringe, there's absolutely some remarkable changes that can happen with reconstructive hair transplant surgery. Now, usually in these cases, instead of a FUE procedure where you take the hairs out one at a time, you usually use a linear excision. And the reason that you do that is not because one is better than the other. It's just because when the hair is curly underneath the scalp, using FUE to try and get that hair out, back to my little diagram here, if you're using a little cone or a tube, you're going to center it on this hair, and it's going to, at some point, transect the hair, because it's a blind punch. You don't know exactly where that curl starts underneath the scalp. So you can do an FUE, but you usually end up with unacceptably high transection rates. Anytime a hair is transected, it just doesn't grow. So you can get between 20 and 50% hairs transected, and that just isn't worth the trade-off, because you don't get as much hair. All that hair is just going to be destroyed. So usually what you do is a small linear surgery. You end up having about a week's worth of stitches, and then the hair grows back between 6 and 12 months. Now, if your hair is curly, it is a beautiful surgery, because curly hair takes up volume, whereas straight hair like mine just has a line. So you get more bang for your buck if you're doing a transplant like this with curly hair. It's a little trickier to manipulate, so you have to have an experienced team, but it can turn out absolutely beautifully. And the afro type hairlines have a lot of distinctive features, so that you can really make it, just absolutely lovely. And the patient can choose to wear their hair long at that point, or they can choose to shave it. What I don't usually recommend is going back to dreadlocks, tight braids, cornrows, or tight hairstyles. Once you've put that hair back, baby it. If you're a little bit susceptible to this, it can happen again if you, return to those hairstyles. But hair loss at the edges is a wonderfully easy procedure for a patient to go to, and you can really restore somebody's confidence by doing it. I hope that helps.